This paper was presented at the JCT Traffic Signal Symposium 2024, thanks to our media partner Highways News, and sponsored by AGD Systems, Four-Way Consulting, Traffic Group Signals, Smart Micro UK, TRL Software, PTV Group, Census Networks, and Starling Technologies.
So I'm a bit of a realist, really. So I assume that you're not all here this late in the day because you want my sparkling personality and presentation skills. I assume it's one of two things. I assume it's because you're all here because you're waiting for the drinks reception and the dinner. But I also assume because you think I'm going to come and talk to you about grant funding and money and ITMF. And actually what I should have done today is I should have had a T-shirt printed saying, don't ask me about ITMF, because that's what everyone's been asking me about. And to offer you a piece of a very specific piece of a very detailed civil service analysis of the current situation of the country, we had a general election a few months ago. Did you realise? Did you notice that? And we had a change of government. And that change of government changed everything, because it really was a change of government. It was a change of government like we haven't seen for the last 20 or 30 years, in that we are undergoing a major review now of spending commitments, of policy, of the aspirations of the department, the things our ministers want to achieve. Our new ministers are different from the things our old ministers wanted to achieve. So there's lots of things up in the air. So when I was offered this slot, and when we talked about the title of this slot, we talked about me coming and telling you about grant funding and ITMF. And then the world moved and things shifted by 180 degrees. And so I can't really do that anymore. So it was a great thought that I would come and do that, Eric, and talk to you about funding, but I can't. So I'm going to talk to you about some other things as well, because it left me with some options. I could either do half an hour of stand-up, but I'm not very good at that. I can't remember enough Tim Vine jokes to get through half an hour. Or I could present transport policies as a medium of dance, but nobody needs to see that. So what I've decided I will do instead is just update you on a few things that we're working on. Now, some of these you'll know already. Some of it is an update on things you already understand. Some of it is just trying to explain the position we're in at the moment regarding funding and policy. A couple of these things are informing you of things that were coming up, things that we will be doing, and therefore things that we would like your help with. And I don't want to take too long in doing this, partly because I'm kind of end of the day, so I don't want to keep you for too long. But partly because I want to give some time for Q&A. And while I'm stood here, I want to give the opportunity to ask me any questions you have about what we're talking about, what I'm not talking about, where things are going, and I will try and answer any questions that I can. So the first thing I want to talk about is TSOG and GLF, Transport Systems Obsolescence Grant and Green Light Fund, which many of you will be aware of. Many of you will be currently spending. I know there are some people in this audience that are telling me they nearly spent it all, which I think is incredible, but fantastic news. That funding is out there now. It's been spent. That's great. There are a few things I want to really say about that, and that's basically that we have received from all of you, I think, now programs of works. We've got programs of the work that you are intending to do, and it's vital that you update them as you go, because one of the things two of the things that we really need to prove about GLF is that and TSOG it's a great way of spending money to deliver results. And I work for an organisation that buys aircraft carriers. So spending £50 million on something is quite small beer in government terms. And there are people in government, there are people in Treasury that will tell you can't really make an impact for just £50 million. The point of TSOG and GLF is it proves that you really can make an impact for spending that kind of money. And the way that we show that is by showing how much work is happening on street, how many schemes are being delivered across England using that funding. The second thing we show is we show the way the market is changing and the way the world is moving, and we know that prices are going up, we know that labour is harder to find, we know that basic materials and technology systems are all getting more expensive. So I fully expect that at the end of the day, we will deliver less schemes than we said we would. And that's not a problem, that's not something that we should be ashamed of, that's life. And that's important, again, that's an important message for government to have, is that as the market changes, as costs rise, as things alter, the amount of things you can do for the money reduces, and government needs to understand that. And this helps us put a scale on that. It helps us put a scale on what we can do with funding and how that changes over time. So it's vitally important that you continue to use that page on the TTF website to update your programs and give us an understanding of what you're able to do. And the reason for that is because this is essential to future funding. I've told you I can't tell you about future funding, and I can't give you any numbers, I can't give you any particular programs, but what I can tell you is there will be future funding in some form or another. And when that future funding is made available, when that money tap gets turned on again, when we as a department next have our spending review chat with the Treasury, and we talk about funding, and we talk about highway maintenance, and signal technology being part of that, and all these other discussions that we'll be having, we need that evidence to be able to sit at the table and say, look, this is a really useful and important and impactful way to spend maintenance funding to improve our transport network. And not only improve it, but to make it fit for the future. So our new government, we know, is already talking more about public transport than our previous ministers did. We know that active travel and access to transport for all, access to transport for people living in rural areas, for people in different socio-economic groups, for people with different mobility issues and disabilities. These are all issues that are very important to our ministers. When we get down to brass tacks and we get asked, what can we do to affect some of these things that we want to do? If we can show that better maintenance, better updating of equipment, all help with that agenda, that helps us in the future. That helps guarantee more money for the future. So it's important that we do all that kind of thing. So that's where we are. A couple of detailed things. We did get asked by quite a lot of people for some generic feedback from winners and those that weren't successful, what worked and what didn't in terms of bids. And we were working on that. We're working on a model that basically didn't name or shame anybody and didn't actually end up with this kind of pointing fingers at people and saying you did this wrong or you did this right. We've worked up a generic model for how we will present feedback. And that again got stopped because of the general election. We're now working on that, and in the next few weeks we will publish that. We'll publish some generic feedback to help you all. When we use the process again, when we use that challenge process again, it will help you all to understand the kind of things we're looking for, maybe alter the way you provide bids. Many of you will have seen yesterday a story came out on the TTF, and I emailed many of you in this room to say that by the end of October you must have your declarations with us. And there was some consternation about this earlier in the programme about, well, how can we declare what we're doing with money we haven't yet spent? The point is that we get a declaration from your head of department, your chief financial officer, your section 151 officer, whoever, to say that they are content that the direction the authority is taking is in accordance with the conditions. So we need that. We need that back quite urgently. We'll also be starting evaluation later this year. That will involve us looking at the work you're doing. That's why us having your programs is essential. That's another reason why that's important, because we will be using our own colleagues in our economic modelling and evaluation section to start to look at the benefits, to start to look at places where we can work out what the benefits are. The benefits we want to get from TSOG and GLF are twofold. I've talked about the benefits around what we deliver and how many schemes we deliver. They're the output benefits. What are the outputs of the money we've spent? We also want to be able to generate some outcome benefits. What are the actual improvements to the transport network, to our communities, by spending this money? And that's around reduced congestion, better air quality, better access to the network. A whole series of things that are quite hard to determine, but important. So we will be working with our colleagues in modelling to come and do that. Now, that won't be a big impact on you as deliverers. We don't expect you to put a lot of effort into that. We will do this, but we need to know where you've worked so we know where to go and look. Again, future allocations could depend on how successful we've been and how well we've proved the case for doing this. So it's vital that you work with us to do that. Right, ITMF. Yeah. What can I say about ITMF, really? So ITMF, the Intelligent Traffic Management Fund, as many of you know, was a fund that we were going to use. It was research money, not maintenance money. We were going to use that to fund a whole series of trials across England to demonstrate new technology, and the intention was to give out quite large amounts of money to allow people to do trials at scale of the next generation of traffic management. And I know many of you started thinking about that. I know many of you in local authorities have started forming consortia. I know industry is really engaged with this. I know the existing players in the market and some of the new entrants to the market have become very motivated by this. And I've spoken to lots of local authorities that this has really driven their thinking forward in terms of what they should aspire to. And that's fantastic news. Sadly, we didn't get the money out the door before the general election. That means we've had to pause it for now. And the current situation with ITMF is it's paused. We haven't got a date when we will restart it. It's paused. What that means for you is that that please don't take everything you've done and throw it away. Please keep thinking the things you're thinking. Please keep those consortiums warm if you can. Keep that thinking going forward. Keep developing your ideas and your aspirations, and keep thinking about the things that you would do to spend that funding in the way we intended it to be spent. But at the moment, just don't commit a lot of money to it, because actually we don't know where this is going to go. We do know that it's been reviewed by the department. It is one of the commitments, one of the many hundreds of commitments across the department that is now being reviewed. It's being reviewed by senior officials in the department, and it's been reviewed in collaboration with Treasury. So that means one of two things. Well, no, maybe it means one of three things. The first thing it means is it could restart. I could be able to come back in a few days' time and say, get on again, we have a new date, go off and make your bids. That might happen. It might go forward in a different form. Ministers might say this is a great idea, but we want to rethink it because this is the way it is. That may happen. Or it may get stopped. And if it gets stopped, as it may well do, if it gets cancelled, that would be a tragedy, but it could happen. If it does happen, that's still not the end, because all that means is that I have work to do to remake the case so that in future years, maybe next year, maybe the year after, we get something similar and we restate the value of this. Nobody doubts the value of this. It's whether or not we fund it or not. So I may well be asking you to come and work with me to help me in the future to restate the case. I don't know yet. I may be asking you to restart your bids and submit them by Christmas. Who knows? It just means that it's now part of the review and we don't really know where it is yet. So please just bear that in mind and don't stop thinking about ITMF. Right. I've got an orange light, which means I'm probably getting near to the end. So I just want to run through some things you might be aware of, but I want your help with. So DSIS, the Digital Controller Information Specification, is some work that's been growing in importance. And this is about developing two things: a numbering system, a national numbering system for traffic signals that allows every signal in the country to have a unique number that locates the signals geographically within its owning authority and within the region and country of the United Kingdom it sits in. And it's important that we do that, partly because it's important that we have that list of signals that have unique numbers, but partly because if we're going to see connected vehicles and connected vehicle services on the UK's roads, having a unique number for signals that can be machine read is vital. So we've come up with this principle of the Simonite number, named after Brian Simonite, who once of this organisation, very, very respected and long-standing member of this community, now no longer with us. And we felt it was fitting that we use Brian's name to name this hopefully major change in how we think about signals. So that the implementation of Simonite numbers will be coming, and we will be asking you to provide lists of your signals, either directly or through your supplier, through your signal maintainer, to allow us to start to generate that data set. So please help us do that. We're also working on a wider schema to actually build a digital model of the Topaz 2500 specification. So basically a way of digitally describing the operational logic of a signal. Now I know this is very complex, and we've been spending a lot of time thinking about this and how we deal with complex junctions and special conditioning and a whole range of other things. And we have a standard that is 99.5% there, but not completely. But we will be starting to surface that and share that with you, and start to look for examples of how we can take junctions and encode them in this format as a kind of alpha trial of what this could look like before we think about launching it in the future. But as you see us asking for information, asking for help with that, please help us, because it's important, I think, that we move forward with that. It's important if we're to deliver connected vehicle services that we deliver in the same way that we're digitising traffic regulation orders through the DTRO process. It's important that we start to think about standards that ultimately fit into a larger UTMC model for DSIS. Which brings me on to UTMC2. UTMC2 is a rethink of the UTMC standards. Now, the UTMC standards have been around for nearly 30 years in some form. It's about 24 years since the UTMC demonstrators kicked off. And UTMC was intended as a set of standards that cover the whole of transport technology, road transport technology. And over the years, they've become very focused on a particular area of that, which is still valuable. But the ethos of UTMC is still the same. It should be a standards ecosystem that everything that we've talked about today sits inside. And it should have standards at different levels, in different areas, that allow us to build ever more complex systems that are interlinked by open architectures, open standards, open interfaces, which is just basically good data science, good data engineering. So we are working now to understand what that will look like. And again, there will be an opportunity to be involved in that over the coming months as we start to scope that out and think what work we need to do to do that, to preserve the existing UTMC standards that we have and find a home for them so they can continue to be referenced and used when you're specifying equipment that is currently UTMC compliant. But think about how we can use that UTMC brand to talk about much wider data standards that currently are nowhere near what UTMC does, but should form part of a UK national standard. And we need to do that for a number of reasons. We need to do that because, as I say, it's just good data engineering. We need to do that because we need to think about, again, connected vehicle services. We need to think about the fact that the European CITS standards that cover things like SPAT and MAP and Denim are all standards that we in the UK have agreed to continue to follow. So we need to find ways of delivering that. We need to find a national structure for doing that. So again, please look at that. Another piece of work that we're about to start, and this kind of links into some things we've heard about already, and it links into some of the work that we've heard around then. I'm running out of time, so I will be brief around this. Is rethinking the manual electronic traffic equipment code of practice, which has existed, which is a UK roads liaison group, road leadership group, document that's existed as part of the well-managed highways suite for a number of years, and it is now very out of date. And we're just starting a project to rewrite it, and to write it as something that's relevant for today and that can form the code of practice that we need for infrastructure equipment, and can be something that works online, not a paper document, but an online resource. There's a lot of work to do. I've asked, I'm working with Gaffer Din from Warwickshire, who is leading this for the UK RLG, and we're looking to see how, using money and resources in the Transport Technology Forum, we can support Gaffer to be able to deliver this. Now again, this is a bit of an ask, because the ask is, when we come out and say this, we'd like some help. We'd like some help. We'd like help to start to think about what needs updating, what we should include, what should be in the standard, how it integrates with the manual for smart streets that we're developing still in the background. Gaffer's email address is there. If you're interested in, if you think it's something you'd like to be interested in, I would hope certainly the manufacturers and hopefully those of you that specify and install equipment for local authorities should be interested in part of that, because this could be a fairly significant change in how we think about code of practice for our equipment. Transport Technology Forum you all know about, I hope. I really hope you do. We continue to go from strength to strength. We have an event coming up at Hinckley next year, the conference, which is the conference that we had this April. We will have it next year again. It'd be great to see as many as possible of you here. We have an autumn update meeting coming in November in Birmingham. Again, it'd be great to see as many as possible there. As I said at the moment, we are in a strange world of government at the moment. So I think coming to events like TTF is essential, because it's our opportunity to update you in a very fast-changing world and keep you up to date with what government is doing, thinking, wanting to fund, etc. So please keep engaged with the TTF. We're doing lots of great stuff at the moment. We're actually, a group of us are going out to represent the UK, and we're taking a number of suppliers. Some of you who are in the room, we're taking out to Dubai next week. I'm struggling to find a lot of sympathy from people I speak to about that. But yeah, next week it's in Dubai. All I will say is it's 44 degrees in Dubai at the moment. It's not quite the picnic you think it might be. But yeah, again, part of the international work that we're doing, working with ITS UK, working with others in the sector to link government to the sector and promote what we're doing. And lastly, a bit further distant, but something you should all be aware of now, and if you're not, you will be in the future. The ITS World Congress, in all its pomp and circumstance, and all its 15,000 delegates and from across the world, and its huge exhibition and its huge learned program and everything it does, which moves around the world every year, will be coming to the West Midlands in 2027. That was last week. That's the UK. That's the Deputy Mayor of the West Midlands, sat with the CEO of ERTICO, the European ITS body. That's them signing the agreement to bring the World Congress to Birmingham in 2027. It's a long way off, but it's a massive event that we are going to start planning fairly soon. Now, this is our opportunity. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, nearly once in a lifetime, to show how good the UK is, to put the UK right at the front of the world international ITS scene and show them how good we are. Eric, when was the last World Congress in the UK, in London? Was it 26? There we go. Doesn't come around very often, this. So it's an absolutely great opportunity to show the world how good we are, show them what we're doing, show them what we've heard in this room today. It's coming, again, this is something we'll be asking for volunteers to help us with. We want you all to start thinking about it and make sure that you're there and make sure that you help us give it the best shot that we can. And that's me. Thank you.